Lady Evelyn Whitmore's hands shook as she poured the dark liquid into the crystal glass. The bitter smell rose up like death itself. Her husband lay sleeping in the great bed, his face pale and drawn. Every night, for 3 months, she had done this same thing. Every night she had served him what looked like poison. Tonight, someone was watching from the shadows of the doorway. The Duke of Ravenshollow stepped forward, his black eyes fixed on the glass in her trembling hands. "Stop," he commanded in a voice like winter wind. Evelyn spun around, the glass nearly slipping from her grip. Her heart hummed against her ribs. "Your Grace, I did not hear you enter." Clearly, his tall frame filled the doorway. Candlelight played across his sharp features, making him look like some dark angel of judgment. "Put down the glass, Lady Whitmore." "I cannot." Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "He needs this. He needs poison." The Duke's eyebrows rose. "How very curious." Evelyn's cheeks burned. "Ugh." Of course it looked like poison. The mixture was black as midnight and smelled worse than a London sewer, but her husband's life depended on it. "Please, Your Grace, you do not understand." "Then explain it to me." He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of leather and rain on his clothes. "Explain why you creep about in the dark, mixing potions like some witch." The words hit her like a slap. Witch. Yes, that was what the servants whispered. That was what the neighbors believed. Even her own mother-in-law had accused her of dark magic. But what choice did she have? Lord Whitmore stirred in his sleep, moaning softly. His fever had broken 3 days ago, but he was still so weak. The doctor had said he might never recover fully from the lung fever that had nearly killed him. Without the medicine, he would surely die. "I must give this to him," Evelyn said, moving toward the bed. The Duke's hand shot out, grasping her wrist. His fingers were warm and strong around her small bones. "I think not. Release me." She tried to pull away, but his grip was gentle yet firm. "Not until you tell me what is in that glass." Evelyn looked up into his face. In the candlelight, his features were harsh, but handsome. She had known Adrian Blackthorne, Duke of Ravenshollow, since childhood. He had been her brother's closest friend at Eton. She had harbored a secret admiration for him then, though he had barely noticed her existence. Now, at 26, she was a married woman with secrets that could destroy her. "It is medicine," she said finally. "Medicine that looks like poison?" "Yes." "Medicine that you prepare in secret?" Her chin lifted. "Yes." "And you expect me to believe this?" "I care not what you believe, Your Grace. I care only for my husband's life." Something flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. "Show me." "What?" "Show me this medicine. Prove to me it is not poison." Evelyn's mouth went dry. How could she prove such a thing? The ingredients were strange and frightening. The preparation looked like witchcraft. Even she had doubted it at first. "I cannot prove it to your satisfaction," she said, "but I can show you something else." She moved to the small writing desk in the corner and pulled out a leather-bound journal. Her hands shook as she opened it to the first page. "This is from Dr. Marcus Thornfield. He studied medicine in Edinburgh and Vienna. He treated lung fevers in the army." The Duke took the journal from her hands. His fingers brushed hers, sending an unexpected shiver up her arm. He read silently for several minutes while she waited, hardly daring to breathe. "These ingredients," he said finally. "Willow bark, foxglove, honey, and what is this word?" "Digitalis. It comes from a flower. Dr. Thornfield says it helps the heart beat stronger." "And the black color?" "Charcoal. To draw out the poisons in his body." The Duke looked from the journal to the glass in her hand, then to her face. "Why did you not tell anyone? Why make it appear as if you were harming him?" Evelyn's throat tightened. How could she explain the fear that had consumed her these past months? The whispers, the stares, the way people crossed themselves when she passed. Her husband's family already blamed her for his illness. They said she was cursed, that her presence brought death and sickness. "Because no one would believe me," she said simply. "They would say I was lying. They would say I was a witch. And so you let them believe you were poisoning him instead?" It seemed easier. The Duke stared at her for a long moment. Then, to her amazement, he began to laugh. It was a rich, warm sound that filled the dark room. "Easier. Lady Whitmore, you have chosen the harder path by far." "Have I?" she asked, confused. "You have let yourself be branded a murderess to protect your reputation as a healer. Most people would do the opposite." Heat rose in her cheeks. "I am no healer, Your Grace. I am simply a woman trying to save her husband. With medicine you prepare yourself, following the notes of an Edinburgh-trained physician. Yes, I can see how that is nothing at all like healing." Was he mocking her? She could not tell from his tone. "Dr. Thornfield left his journal when he died of the same fever that took my husband. He said the medicine must be prepared fresh each night. He said it must be given at midnight when the body is most ready to accept healing." "And so you have been doing this for 3 months?" "Yes, every night." "Yes." "Alone?" The single word hung in the air between them. Alone. Yes, she had been alone. Her husband's illness had driven away most of their friends. His family blamed her and avoided the house. Even the servants whispered that she was cursed. "Yes," she whispered. The Duke stepped closer. In the candlelight, his face was gentle now, not harsh. That must have been very frightening. To her horror, tears sprang to her eyes. She had not cried once during these terrible months. She had been strong, determined, focused only on saving her husband's life. But now, faced with unexpected kindness, her carefully built walls began to crumble. "I was so afraid," she admitted. "Every night I was afraid it would not work, afraid he would die, afraid I was making him worse instead of better. But you continued anyway. What choice did I have? The doctors said there was nothing more they could do. They said to prepare for the worst. And you refused to accept that." "I could not." The tears were flowing freely now. "He is my husband. I made vows to care for him in sickness and health. I could not simply let him die." The Duke reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. His touch was warm and tender, and it made her heart do strange things in her chest. "You are remarkable, Lady Whitmore. I am nothing special. You are wrong." His voice was soft but firm. "You are extraordinary." Lord Whitmore stirred again, and Evelyn remembered the glass still in her hand. "I must give him the medicine now. It must be midnight exactly, or it will not work properly." The Duke nodded and stepped back. She approached the bed and gently shook her husband's shoulder. Charles, you must wake up." Charles Whitmore opened his eyes slowly. They were clearer now than they had been in weeks, though still weak. "Evelyn?" "Yes, my dear, time for your medicine." He made a face at the glass but did not protest. He had learned to trust her, even when the medicine tasted terrible. He drank it down quickly, grimacing at the bitter taste. "There," she said, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. "Try to sleep now." Charles nodded and closed his eyes. Within minutes, he was breathing deeply and evenly. The medicine always helped him sleep better. Evelyn turned back to the Duke, who had been watching silently. "You see? It is medicine, not poison." I see that your husband trusts you completely. Yes, he is the only one who does. No longer. The Duke's dark eyes met hers. I believe you, Lady Whitmore, and I think I can help you. Help me? How? By making sure the world knows the truth. That you are not a murderess or a witch, but a devoted wife who saved her husband's life with medicine and love. Evelyn's heart began to race. Why would you do such a thing? Because it is the right thing to do, and because... He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. Because I have watched you from afar these past months. I have seen your courage and your devotion. I have seen you sacrifice your own reputation to save the man you love. Such selflessness deserves to be rewarded, not punished. You have been watching me? I have been concerned about you. Your brother asked me to keep an eye on you when he left for India. I had no idea you were facing such difficulties. James. Her dear brother had asked the Duke to watch over her. The thought warmed her heart and embarrassed her at the same time. I did not know. I should have done more. I should have intervened sooner. I am sorry for that. There was nothing you could have done. I chose this path. Yes, but you should not have had to walk it alone. The way he said those words made her pulse quicken. There was something in his voice, something in his eyes, that spoke of more than mere friendship or duty to her brother. Your Grace, she began, but he held up a hand. Adrian, please. We have known each other too long for such formality. Adrian. His name felt strange on her lips. She had never spoken it aloud before, though she had whispered it in her heart countless times as a girl. What did you mean about helping me? I mean to spread the truth about your midnight activities. I will tell everyone that you have been administering medicine, not poison. I will make sure they understand that you saved your husband's life with skill and dedication. And why would they believe you when they would not believe me? Because I am a duke, and men listen to dukes. Because I am not your husband's wife, so I have no reason to lie, and because I will make it very clear that anyone who continues to spread lies about you will answer to me personally. The promise in his voice made her shiver. She had forgotten how powerful he was, how feared and respected. If the Duke of Ravenshollow vouched for her, the whispers would stop. The accusations would end. She could hold her head up again. Why? She asked softly. Why would you risk your own reputation for mine? He was quiet for so long that she thought he would not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. Because I have been in love with you since I was 20 years old. The words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, one hand pressed to her throat. What? I have loved you since the summer you turned 18. Since that day you fell from your horse, and I helped you up. Do you remember? She remembered. How could she forget? She had been riding alone, against her mother's wishes, when her horse had shied at a rabbit. She had been thrown to the ground, her skirts tangled around her legs, her hair coming loose from its pins. And then suddenly he was there, strong and gentle, helping her to her feet, with hands that lingered longer than necessary. I remember, she whispered. You looked up at me with those green eyes, and you smiled, and I was lost, completely lost. But you never said anything. You never even seemed to notice me, because you were my best friend's little sister, because you were too young, because I was a rake and a scoundrel who drank too much and gambled away fortunes. You deserved better than me. And now? Now you are married to another man. Now it is too late. The pain in his voice made her chest ache. She wanted to reach out to him, to comfort him somehow. But what could she say? He was right. It was too late. She was married, bound by law and duty to Charles Whitmore. Even if she had feelings for Adrian, and she was beginning to realize she did, it could never be. I am sorry, she said. Do not be sorry. Be happy. Your husband is recovering. He will live, thanks to you. That is what matters. Is it? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Adrian's head snapped up, his dark eyes searching her face. What do you mean? I mean, she struggled to find the words. I mean that sometimes I wonder what my life might have been like if things had been different. Evelyn. Her name on his lips was like a prayer. Do not say such things. Why not? It is true. When I was a girl, I used to dream about you. I used to imagine what it would be like if you noticed me, if you cared for me the way I cared for you. And now? Now I am a married woman who should not be having such thoughts. But you are having them. It was not a question. She could see in his eyes that he knew the truth. She was having such thoughts, standing here in the candlelit room. With her husband sleeping peacefully nearby, she was thinking about what it would be like to be kissed by Adrian Blackthorne. She was thinking about what it would feel like to be held in his strong arms, to hear him whisper words of love in her ear. Yes, she admitted. I am having them. Evelyn. He stepped closer, and she could see the conflict in his face. Honor warring with desire. Duty battling with love. We cannot. I know. You are another man's wife. I know. It would be wrong. I know. Then why are you looking at me like that? Like what? Like you want me to kiss you. Her breath caught in her throat. Because I do. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with longing and impossibility. Adrian's hands clenched into fists at his sides. She could see him struggling with himself, fighting against the pull she felt too. We cannot, he said again, but his voice was weaker now. One kiss, she whispered. Just one. To know what it might have been like. Evelyn, do not ask me to do this. I am not asking, I am begging. Something broke in his eyes then, with a sound that was half groan, half prayer. He stepped forward and pulled her into his arms. His mouth came down on hers with desperate hunger, and she melted against him like candle wax in flame. The kiss was everything she had dreamed it would be and more. His lips were warm and soft and demanding. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer. She could taste the brandy on his breath, could smell the masculine scent of his skin. For a moment the world disappeared. There was no husband sleeping nearby, no duty, no honor. There was only this man, and this kiss, and the fire that burned between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Adrian rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed tight. That was a mistake. Was it? Yes, the biggest mistake of my life. Why? Because now I know what I am missing. Now I know what it feels like to hold you, to kiss you, and I will have to live with that knowledge for the rest of my life. Tears pricked her eyes again. Adrian. No. He stepped back, putting distance between them. We cannot do this again. We cannot betray your husband like this. Charles is a good man who loves you. He does not deserve to be cuckolded by his wife and his friend. The harsh words stung, but she knew he was right. Whatever her feelings for Adrian, whatever his feelings for her, they could not act on them. She was married. She had made vows. She had duties and responsibilities that went beyond her own desires. You are right, she said quietly. I am sorry. I should not have. The fault is mine. I should have been stronger. We were both weak. Yes. He ran a hand through his dark hair. But it cannot happen again. No, it cannot. They stood in awkward silence for several minutes. Finally, Adrian cleared his throat. I should go. Yes, but first, tell me about this Dr. Thornfield. Where did he come from? How did he know your husband? The change of subject was abrupt but welcome. Evelyn grasped at it like a lifeline. He was an army surgeon. He came to London after Waterloo looking for work. Charles hired him to treat some of our tenants who had fallen ill with lung fever. And he died of the same disease? Yes, but not before he wrote down everything he knew about treating it. He gave me his journal and made me promise to use it if Charles became ill. That was fortunate. Yes, though at the time I thought it was morbid. I never imagined I would actually need it. But you did. And you followed his instructions exactly. To the letter, every ingredient, every measurement, every timing. I was terrified of making a mistake. And it worked. Yes. Slowly, but yes. Charles has not had a fever in over a week. His breathing is much easier. The doctor says he will make a full recovery. Thanks to you. Thanks to Dr. Thornfield's journal. No, Adrian said firmly. Thanks to you, you could have thrown the journal away. You could have accepted the doctor's verdict and let him die. Instead, you chose to fight. You chose to learn, to try, to risk everything for his life. That took courage, Evelyn. More courage than most people possess. His praise warmed her heart, but it also made her uncomfortable. She did not feel brave. She felt frightened and confused and guilty about the kiss they had shared. I should check on Charles, she said, grateful for the excuse to turn away from Adrian's intense gaze. She approached the bed and placed her hand on her husband's forehead. It was cool and dry. His color was good. His breathing steady and deep. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe he would truly recover. He looks well, Adrian observed from behind her. Yes, much better than he has in weeks. You have saved his life. We do not know that yet. I know it. Look at him, Evelyn. Look at the color in his cheeks, the ease of his breathing. That is not the sleep of a dying man. She wanted to believe him, but she had learned to be cautious with hope. Too many times over the past months, she had thought Charles was improving, only to see him relapse into fever and delirium. Perhaps, she said carefully. Not perhaps. Certainly. Adrian moved to stand beside her, careful not to touch her. Your husband is a lucky man. Is he? He has a wife who would risk everything to save him. A wife who would endure accusations of witchcraft and murder rather than abandon him. Yes, he is very lucky indeed. The irony in his voice was not lost on her. Charles was lucky to have a wife who loved him enough to save his life. But that same wife had just betrayed him with another man. The guilt of it sat heavy in her stomach. Adrian, she began, but he shook his head. Do not say anything more. What happened between us? It was a moment of weakness, nothing more. We are both overwrought by the events of the evening. It will not happen again. But it will not happen again, he repeated firmly. I give you my word as a gentleman. The words should have comforted her, but instead they left her feeling empty and sad. She did not want it to happen again. She was a married woman with a conscience, but part of her wished things could be different. Part of her wished she was free to explore these feelings that had lain dormant in her heart for so many years. I understand, she said. Good. He moved toward the door. I will call on you tomorrow afternoon. We need to discuss how to repair your reputation. That is not necessary. It is entirely necessary. I will not have you continuing to live under suspicion and fear. The truth must be told. And if people do not believe the truth, they will believe it when I tell it. There was that ducal arrogance again, but Evelyn found it comforting rather than annoying. For so long she had felt powerless against the whispers and accusations. The idea that someone with Adrian's influence was willing to champion her cause filled her with relief. Thank you, she said simply. Do not thank me. I should have done this months ago. You did not know. I should have known. I should have been paying closer attention. I should have realized you were in trouble and offered my help. Why did you not? He paused in the doorway, his hand on the frame. Because I was a coward. Because I knew that if I spent too much time around you, I would do something foolish. Something like what happened tonight. Adrian, good night, Lady Whitmore. Sleep well. And then he was gone, leaving her alone with her sleeping husband and her churning thoughts. She sank into the chair beside the bed and put her head in her hands. What had she done? What had they done? She had kissed another man, not just any man, but her brother's best friend, a duke, a man she had dreamed about since girlhood. And not a casual, meaningless kiss, but something deep and passionate and real. Something that had shaken her to her core and made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. She was not the sort of woman who had affairs. She was not the sort of woman who betrayed her husband. She had always prided herself on her moral character, her sense of duty and honor. Yet tonight, she had thrown all of that away for a few moments in Adrian's arms. And the worst part was, she did not entirely regret it. Oh, she felt guilty. Terribly, horribly guilty. But she could not bring herself to wish it had never happened. For too many years, she had wondered what it would be like to be kissed by Adrian Blackthorne. Now she knew. Now she had that memory to treasure, even if she could never act on her feelings again. Charles stirred in his sleep, and she reached out to touch his hand. It was warm and strong, so different from the cold, weak fingers she had held for months during his illness. He was getting better. He was going to live. That was what mattered. That was what she had to focus on. Not the way Adrian's eyes had darkened with desire. Not the way his hands had felt in her hair. Not the way her heart had hammered against her ribs when he pulled her close. She was a married woman. She had duties and responsibilities. She could not, she would not, allow herself to be distracted by impossible dreams. But as she sat in the dark room listening to her husband's steady breathing, she could not stop thinking about the man who had just walked out of her life forever. The next morning brought sunshine and the sound of birds singing outside her window. Evelyn woke in the chair beside Charles' bed, her neck stiff from sleeping upright. She blinked in the bright light, momentarily disoriented. "Good morning, my dear." She turned to see Charles, sitting up in bed, his eyes clear and alert. He looked better than he had in months, color in his cheeks, strength in his voice. For a moment, she forgot all about Adrian and the kiss, and the guilt. Her husband was truly getting well. "Charles." She rose quickly and went to him, pressing her hand to his forehead. No fever. His skin was cool and dry. "How do you feel?" "Hungry," he said with a smile, "remarkably hungry." It was the first time he had expressed interest in food in weeks. Tears of relief sprang to her eyes. "I will ring for breakfast immediately." "In a moment." He caught her hand and looked at her seriously. "First, I want to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For saving my life. I know what you have been doing, Evelyn. I know about the medicine, about the journal, about the risks you have taken." Her breath caught. "You know, I am not blind, my dear. Even in my delirium, I understood some of what was happening. I heard the servants whispering. I saw the fear in the doctor's eyes. I knew you were my only hope." "Charles, let me finish." His grip on her hand tightened. "I know what people have been saying about you. I know they think you are trying to poison me. I know you have endured their suspicions and accusations without complaint. You have sacrificed your reputation to save my life, and I can never repay that debt. You do not need to repay anything. You are my husband. I love you, and I love you more than I can say. You are the most remarkable woman I have ever known." The words should have filled her with joy, but instead they made her guilt burn hotter. Her husband was praising her for her devotion, while she had spent the night dreaming of another man's kiss. "I am not remarkable," she said. "I am just a woman trying to take care of her husband." "No, you are extraordinary, and I promise you I will make sure everyone knows it. I will make sure they understand what you have done for me." "How?" "I will tell them. I will stand up in church and announce to the world that my wife saved my life with medicine, not magic. I will make sure they know you are a healer, not a witch."
"Charles, you do not need to."
"Yes, I do. I have been weak and sick for too long. I have let you bear this burden alone, but I am strong enough now to defend you, and I will." She squeezed his hand, overwhelmed by his words. This was why she had married him. Charles Whitmore was a good man, an honorable man, a man who would stand by his wife no matter what. She did not deserve him. "I will ring for breakfast," she said, eager to escape his loving gaze. But as she reached for the bell pull, there was a knock at the door. "Come in," Charles called. To Evelyn's dismay, Adrian walked into the room. He was impeccably dressed, as always, his dark hair perfectly styled, his face showing no trace of the passion they had shared the night before. He looked every inch the powerful Duke, remote and controlled. "Your Grace," Charles said, struggling to sit up straighter. "What an unexpected pleasure." "Please, do not exert yourself," Adrian said smoothly. "I came to check on your health. Lady Whitmore told me you were recovering well." Evelyn's cheeks burned. When had she told him that? Oh yes, during their midnight conversation, before the kiss that had changed everything. "Indeed I am," Charles replied, "thanks entirely to my devoted wife." "Yes," Adrian said, his eyes meeting Evelyn's briefly before looking away. "Lady Whitmore's dedication has been remarkable." The word hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning. Evelyn felt her pulse quicken and forced herself to look anywhere but at Adrian's face. "I understand there have been some unfortunate rumors," Adrian continued. "Rumors that I am here to address." "Rumors?" Charles asked. "About Lady Whitmore's nighttime activities. Some people have been spreading stories that she has been harming you rather than helping you." Charles's face darkened. "I was not aware the gossip had reached your ears, Your Grace. It has reached everyone's ears, I am afraid, which is why I intend to put a stop to it." "How?" "By telling the truth, by making sure everyone knows that your wife has been administering medicine, not poison, that she has been following the notes of a trained physician, that she has saved your life through skill and devotion, not dark magic." Charles looked at Evelyn with surprise. "You told him about Dr. Thornfield's journal?" "Yes," she said quietly. "Last night." "Last night?" Charles frowned. "What were you doing here last night, Your Grace?" Adrian's expression did not change, but Evelyn saw a muscle twitch in his jaw. "I came to check on you both. Your brother asked me to keep an eye on Lady Whitmore while he is in India. I have been negligent in that duty." "I see." Charles did not look entirely convinced, but he was too weak to pursue the matter. "Well, I appreciate your concern, and your offer to help clear my wife's reputation. It is the least I can do. Lady Whitmore has suffered enough for her acts of mercy." "Indeed she has." Charles reached for Evelyn's hand again. "Come here, my dear. Sit beside me." She had no choice but to obey, settling on the edge of the bed while very aware of Adrian watching her every move. Charles kept hold of her hand, stroking her fingers with his thumb. "Your Grace," Charles said, "I wonder if I might impose upon you for another favor." "Of course. Would you stay for breakfast? I find myself quite hungry this morning, the first time in months, and I would enjoy the company." Evelyn's heart sank. The last thing she wanted was to sit through a meal with Adrian, pretending that nothing had happened between them, while her husband held her hand and praised her devotion. "I would not want to intrude on your recovery," Adrian said carefully. "Nonsense. You are family, practically speaking, my wife's brother's dearest friend. Besides, I owe you a debt of gratitude for looking out for Evelyn in my absence." "Your absence?" "Well, my illness. I have not been much of a husband these past months, I am afraid. Too weak to protect her from gossip and speculation. But you have been watching over her, and for that I am grateful." If only he knew how Adrian had been watching over her, Evelyn thought miserably. If only he knew about the kiss, about the confession of love, about the way her heart still raced whenever the Duke looked at her. "Lady Whitmore is perfectly capable of taking care of herself," Adrian said. "But I am happy to have been of service, modest as always." Charles smiled. "What do you say, my dear? Shall we invite His Grace to break his fast with us?" Evelyn could hardly refuse without appearing rude. "Of course. I will ring for extra place settings." "Wonderful." Charles squeezed her hand. "It will be like old times when you and James and His Grace used to visit. Do you remember, Evelyn? You were just a girl then, but you used to hang on every word His Grace spoke." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I was very young, and very impressed by dukes," Charles teased. "I remember being quite jealous of the attention you paid him." "Charles, please," she murmured, mortified. "What?" "It is true. I used to wonder if I would ever capture your notice the way His Grace did, so effortlessly. But you did," she said quickly, desperate to change the subject. "You captured much more than my notice." "Did I? Sometimes I wonder." There was something wistful in his voice that made her look at him sharply. Did he suspect something? Had he noticed the way she looked at Adrian? The way she blushed when his name was mentioned? "Of course you did," she said firmly. "You won my heart completely." "I am glad to hear it." But his eyes were thoughtful as they moved between her and Adrian. The breakfast was every bit as awkward as Evelyn had feared. Charles, energized by his recovery, was talkative and jovial. He regaled Adrian with stories of his illness, praising Evelyn's care at every turn. He described her midnight vigils, her careful preparation of the medicine, her refusal to give up hope even when the doctors had pronounced him doomed. "She is a saint," he declared, raising his teacup in a toast. "An absolute saint. I am the luckiest man alive to have such a wife." "Indeed," Adrian murmured, his eyes fixed on his plate. "And now, thanks to your intervention, the world will know it too. No more whispers about witchcraft and poison. No more suspicious looks when she goes to market. You have given me back my wife's reputation, Your Grace, and I can never thank you enough." "There is no need for thanks. I am simply correcting a misunderstanding, a dangerous misunderstanding. Do you know, some of the servants were actually afraid to be alone with her. They thought she might curse them or slip something into their food. Can you imagine?" Evelyn winced. She had not realized the fear had spread so far among the household staff. No wonder they had been avoiding her, looking at her with frightened eyes. "Ignorance breeds fear," Adrian said diplomatically. "But education can dispel both." "Exactly. And who better to educate them than a duke? When you vouch for Lady Whitmore's character, no one will dare question it." "I hope you are right." "I know I am right. You have that effect on people, Your Grace. They listen when you speak. They believe what you tell them." "Sometimes." "Always," Charles corrected. "You have always had that gift. Even as a young man, people trust you, respect you. It is one of the things that made you such a good friend to James. Your brother is a good man. Yes, he is, and he will be so grateful when he learns what you have done for his sister. You have gone above and beyond the call of friendship. Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I have done only what honor demanded. Honor, yes, but also kindness. Not every man would have taken such an interest in a friend's sister. Not every man would have gone to such lengths to protect her reputation. Lady Whitmore deserves protection. She does indeed. Charles reached over and squeezed her hand again. She deserves the world. The conversation continued in this vein for another half-hour, with Charles praising Evelyn and thanking Adrian while the two objects of his gratitude sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Adrian rose from his chair. "I should take my leave," he said. "You need your rest, Whitmore, and I have business to attend to." "Of course, but you will call again soon? Now that I am recovering, I hope we can renew our friendship properly." Yes, of course. Excellent. And Your Grace, thank you again for everything." Adrian nodded stiffly and turned to Evelyn. "Lady Whitmore, I trust you will continue to follow Dr. Thornfield's instructions until your husband is fully recovered." "Yes, Your Grace." "Good. I will call again soon to check on your progress." He bowed formally and left the room, leaving Evelyn alone with her husband and her guilt. Charles watched the door close behind Adrian with a thoughtful expression. "He seemed rather tense," Charles observed. "Did he? I had not noticed." I wonder if something is troubling him. He used to be more relaxed, more at ease. But today he seemed almost distant. Perhaps he is simply busy with his estates. Perhaps. Charles turned to look at her directly. "Evelyn, may I ask you something?" Her heart began to pound. "Of course. Last night, when His Grace came to check on us, what exactly happened?" "What do you mean?" I have vague memories of voices, of conversation, but I was not fully awake. I wondered if there was anything I should know about." She could not meet his eyes. "He was concerned about the medicine I was giving you. He thought it might be harmful." "And you convinced him otherwise?" "Yes, I showed him Dr. Thornfield's journal." "I see. And that satisfied him?" "Yes." "Good. I would hate for him to think poorly of you. His opinion matters a great deal to me." "I know." Charles was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Then he smiled and leaned back against his pillows. "Well, no matter. What is important is that he understands the truth now, and soon everyone else will too." "Yes." "You seem tired, my dear. Why do not you rest for a while?" "I think I will sleep myself. I find I am still quite weak, despite my improved appetite." She nodded gratefully and rose from the bed. "I will check on you later, Evelyn." She turned back. "Yes, I love you more than life itself. I hope you know that." The words were like arrows to her heart. "I know. I love you too, Charles." And she did love him. That was the worst part. She loved her husband, but she was also desperately, hopelessly attracted to another man, a man she could never have, never touch, never kiss again. She left the room and went to her own chamber, where she threw herself down on the bed and finally allowed herself to cry. Great, wrenching sobs that came from the deepest part of her soul. She cried for her husband's suffering, for her own guilt, for the impossible situation she found herself in. Most of all, she cried for Adrian and the love that could never be. When the tears finally stopped, she felt hollow and empty, but also resolved. She would put last night behind her. She would focus on her husband's recovery and her duties as his wife. She would not think about Adrian's kiss or the way he had looked at her or the confession of love that had shattered her world. She would be the perfect wife. The devoted, faithful, honorable woman Charles believed her to be, even if it killed her. Over the next few days, Adrian was true to his word. He began a campaign to rehabilitate Evelyn's reputation that was both subtle and effective. He mentioned her nursing skills to friends at his club. He praised her devotion to her husband in conversations with influential ladies. He made sure that the story of Dr. Thornfield's journal and the life-saving medicine became common knowledge among London society. The results were almost immediate. The suspicious look stopped. The whispered conversations ended. Instead, people began to speak of Lady Whitmore with admiration and respect. She was no longer the witch who poisoned her husband, but the devoted wife who had saved his life with skill and determination. Charles continued to improve each day. His appetite returned fully. His strength grew and his color became healthier. The doctor pronounced himself amazed by the recovery and gave full credit to Evelyn's nursing. Within a week, Charles was strong enough to leave his bed for several hours at a time. Within 2 weeks, he was taking short walks in the garden. "It is a miracle," the doctor told Evelyn. "I have never seen such a complete recovery from lung fever. Your husband is extraordinarily fortunate to have you as his wife." Evelyn accepted the praise with mixed feelings. Yes, she was glad Charles was getting well. Yes, she was proud of her role in his recovery. But the constant accolades made her guilt burn hotter. Everyone praised her devotion and faithfulness while she harbored secret feelings for another man. Adrian kept his promise to call regularly, but their interactions were formal and distant. He never came alone, always bringing a friend or timing his visits to coincide with other callers. When he spoke to her, it was with polite courtesy and nothing more. To anyone watching, he was simply a family friend, checking on an invalid's progress. But Evelyn could see the strain in his eyes. She could see the way his hands clenched when Charles praised her devotion. She could see the pain he was trying so hard to hide. It matched her own. 3 weeks after their midnight encounter, Charles announced that he felt strong enough to attend church services. It would be his first public appearance since his illness, and he was determined to make it memorable. "I want to thank everyone publicly," he told Evelyn as she helped him dress in his finest clothes. "I want to stand up in front of the entire congregation and tell them what you have done for me." "Charles, that is not necessary." "It is absolutely necessary. These people doubted you, whispered about you, treated you like a pariah. They owe you an apology, and I intend to make sure they deliver it." Evelyn's stomach churned with anxiety. She did not want to be the center of attention, did not want everyone staring at her and speculating about her marriage. But Charles was determined, and she could not dissuade him without appearing ungrateful for his support. The church was packed that Sunday morning. Word had spread that Lord Whitmore would be making his first public appearance since his near-fatal illness. Everyone wanted to see the man who had supposedly been rising from his deathbed, thanks to his wife's mysterious ministrations. Evelyn sat in the family pew, acutely aware of the eyes upon her. Some faces showed curiosity, others admiration, still others skeptical doubt. She kept her gaze fixed on her prayer book and tried to ignore the whispers. Adrian was there too, sitting with several other prominent gentlemen in the front of the church. He did not look at her directly, but she could feel his presence like a physical weight. When the service ended, the vicar announced that Lord Whitmore wished to address the congregation. Charles rose slowly, still somewhat weak, but determined. Evelyn's heart pounded as he cleared his throat and began to speak. "My friends," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the church, "I stand before you today as a man reborn. 3 months ago, I was dying of lung fever. The doctors had given up hope. My family was preparing for my funeral. but my wife refused to accept defeat. A murmur ran through the congregation. Charles continued, his voice growing stronger. Lady Whitmore found the journal of Dr. Marcus Thornfield, a trained physician who had studied the treatment of lung fever in Edinburgh and Vienna. She followed his instructions exactly, preparing medicine each night and administering it at midnight, when my body was most receptive to healing. The murmur grew louder. Some people looked impressed, others skeptical. "I know there have been rumors," Charles said, his voice hardening slightly. "Rumors that my wife was trying to harm me rather than heal me. These rumors are not only false, they are cruel and unjust. My wife saved my life with skill, dedication and love. She endured months of suspicion and fear to do what no doctor could do. She brought me back from the brink of death." He paused, looking directly at several people who had been among the worst gossips. "I want everyone in this room to understand something. Lady Whitmore is not a witch. She is not a poisoner. She is a healer, a devoted wife, and the most courageous woman I have ever known. Anyone who continues to spread lies about her will answer to me personally." The church was dead silent now. Charles's words had been delivered with unmistakable authority and conviction. No one would dare challenge him directly. Furthermore, Charles continued, "I want to thank His Grace, the Duke of Ravenshollow, for his support during this difficult time. He investigated the rumors about my wife and determined them to be false. His vouching for her character has helped restore her reputation in society. I am grateful for his friendship and his intervention on our behalf." Evelyn felt her cheeks burn as every eye in the church turned to look at Adrian. He acknowledged the recognition with a slight nod, his face expressionless. In closing, Charles said, "I ask all of you to join me in thanking God for my recovery and my wife for her devotion. Without her, I would not be standing here today. She is truly a blessing, and I am the most fortunate of men to call her my wife." He sat down to scattered applause and murmurs of approval. The vindication was complete. No one would dare whisper about Evelyn now, not after such a public and forceful defense from her husband. But as people began to file out of the church, stopping to congratulate Charles on his recovery and praise Evelyn's devotion, she felt no satisfaction. Instead, she felt empty and false. Yes, she had saved her husband's life, but she had also betrayed him in her heart. She was not the saint he believed her to be. "Lady Whitmore," a voice said beside her. She turned to see Mrs. Pemberton, one of the worst gossips in the parish. The woman's face was red with embarrassment. "I owe you an apology. I may have spoken hastily about your nighttime activities. I hope you can forgive me." "Of course," Evelyn replied graciously, though she wanted nothing more than to escape. More apologies followed, along with effusive praise for her nursing skills and devotion. By the time they finally made it outside, Evelyn felt drained and hollow. "That went well," Charles said with satisfaction as their carriage pulled away from the church. "I think we can consider your reputation fully restored." "Yes. Thank you for speaking on my behalf. It was the least I could do. You have sacrificed so much for me, Evelyn. I wanted everyone to know it." She nodded and turned to look out the carriage window. As they drove past the church, she saw Adrian standing with a group of gentlemen, his dark head bent in conversation. For just a moment, he looked up and their eyes met through the glass. The pain in his gaze made her chest ache. Then the carriage turned a corner, and he was gone. That afternoon, Charles announced that he wanted to take a walk in their garden. It was a beautiful day, warm and sunny, and he said the fresh air would do him good. Evelyn agreed readily, grateful for any distraction from her churning thoughts. They strolled slowly along the gravel paths. Charles's arm linked through hers for support. He pointed out the roses that had bloomed in his absence, the herbs that had grown tall in the kitchen garden, the repairs that needed to be made to the gazebo. It was peaceful and domestic, exactly the sort of activity a devoted married couple should enjoy. "I have been thinking," Charles said as they paused beside the fountain in the center of the garden. "About what?" "About our future. About what I want to do now that I have been given a second chance at life." "And what is that?" "I want to travel. I want to see the world with you, Evelyn. I want to visit Paris and Rome and Vienna. I want to show you all the places I have dreamed of seeing." The idea should have excited her, but instead it filled her with a strange sadness. Travel would mean leaving London, leaving England, leaving Adrian. "That sounds wonderful," she said, forcing enthusiasm into her voice. "Does it? You seem less than thrilled." "No, I am simply surprised. You have never expressed interest in travel before." "Because I was not living before. Not really. I was simply existing, going through the motions of life without truly appreciating it. My illness has taught me how precious time is, how important it is to seize every opportunity for happiness." "Yes, I suppose it has. Which is why I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer me honestly." Her heart began to race. "What?" Charles stopped walking and turned to face her directly. His eyes were serious, searching. "Are you happy, Evelyn? Truly happy?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you content with your life? With our marriage? With me?" "Of course I am." "Why would you ask such a thing?" "Because lately you seem distant, troubled. Even before my illness I noticed it. You smile and say the right things, but there is something in your eyes, something sad and yearning." Her mouth went dry. How could she answer such a question honestly without destroying everything? "I am fine, Charles. Perhaps a bit tired from the strain of the past few months, but fine." "Is that all it is? Fatigue?" "Yes." He studied her face for a long moment. "Evelyn, if there is something troubling you, something you need to tell me, I hope you know you can trust me with it." "There is nothing to tell. Nothing at all." The way he said it made her wonder if he suspected something. Did he know about Adrian's visit that night? Had he heard more than he let on? Did he guess at the feelings she was trying so hard to hide? "Nothing," she repeated firmly. Charles nodded slowly, but his expression remained troubled. "Very well, but promise me something." "What?" "Promise me that if you are ever unhappy, if you ever need anything, you will tell me. I want to be a good husband to you, Evelyn. I want to make you happy." The words were like knives to her heart. "You do make me happy, Charles. You are a wonderful husband." "Am I?" "Sometimes I wonder if I have been too complacent, too focused on my own concerns to pay proper attention to yours." "That is not true." "Is it not? When did we last have a real conversation about your dreams, your desires? When did we last talk about what you want from life beyond being my wife?" She could not remember. Their conversations had always been pleasant, but superficial, focused on daily concerns and social obligations. They had never delved deep into matters of the heart or soul. "I am content with being your wife," she said. "But is contentment enough? Should not marriage offer more than mere contentment?" The question hung in the air between them. Evelyn did not know how to answer it. She had thought she was content with her marriage, had believed that affection and respect were sufficient foundations for a happy life. But Adrian's kiss had awakened longings she had not known she possessed. It had shown her what passion felt like, what it meant to be desired with desperate intensity. "I think," she said carefully, "that contentment is more than many people achieve in marriage." "Perhaps. But you deserve more than contentment, Evelyn. You deserve to be cherished, adored, worshipped. You deserve a love that sets your soul on fire. The words were so close to what she felt for Adrian that she nearly gasped aloud. Charles, I know I am not the most romantic of husbands. I know I do not speak of love as poets do, with flowery words and grand gestures, but I do love you more than you know, and I want you to be happy. I am happy. Are you? Then why do you sometimes look at me with such sadness in your eyes? Why do you turn away when I reach for you? Why do you seem so far away, even when you are right beside me? She had not realized her feelings were so transparent. She thought she had been hiding her inner turmoil successfully, but apparently Charles was more observant than she had given him credit for. I do not mean to seem distant, she said. Perhaps I am more affected by recent events than I realized. The illness, you mean? The rumors and gossip? Yes. It has been a difficult time. Of course it has. I am sorry, my dear. I have been so focused on my own recovery that I have not given proper thought to what you have endured. The strain must have been enormous. It is over now. Yes, thanks to you and to His grace. Charles's expression grew thoughtful. I must say, I was surprised by the extent of his intervention on your behalf. Surprised? Well, yes. I mean, I know he is James's friend, and I know he promised to keep an eye on you, but going to such lengths to clear your reputation, it suggests a level of concern that goes beyond mere friendship. Evelyn's heart began to pound. I think he simply felt it was the right thing to do. Perhaps he cares for you more than he lets on. The words hit her like a physical blow. Did Charles suspect? Had he guessed at Adrian's feelings? I am sure you are mistaken, she said, as calmly as she could manage. Am I? You did not see the way he looked at you during breakfast the other morning. There was something in his eyes, something intense and protective. He was simply being kind. Was he? I wonder. Charles began walking again, his arm still linked through hers. You know, I have always suspected that His Grace harbored tender feelings for you. What? Oh yes. Even years ago, when you were just James's little sister, I noticed the way he watched you, the way he seemed to listen more carefully when you spoke, the way he always asked after your welfare when he visited. Evelyn could hardly breathe. You are imagining things. I do not think so. I think Adrian Blackthorne has been in love with you for years. The casual use of Adrian's first name, the matter-of-fact tone, made it clear that Charles had given this considerable thought. How long had he suspected? How much did he know? Charles, please, you are making too much of simple courtesy. Am I? Tell me, Evelyn, how do you feel about His Grace? The direct question made her stumble slightly. Charles steadied her with his free hand, his eyes never leaving her face. What do you mean? I mean, do you care for him? Beyond the gratitude you naturally feel for his recent assistance, she could not lie outright, not when he was looking at her so intently. I have always admired him. Admired him? Yes, he is an impressive man. Intelligent, honorable, powerful, and handsome. Charles, what are you getting at? I am trying to understand something that has been troubling me. You see, I have been wondering if your recent sadness, your distance, might have something to do with His Grace. I do not understand. I think you do. Charles stopped walking and turned to face her again. I think you have feelings for him, Evelyn. Feelings that go beyond admiration or gratitude. The accusation hung in the air between them. Evelyn felt trapped, cornered, like a fox facing the hounds. She could deny it, but Charles was clearly not going to be satisfied with simple denials. He had seen too much, guessed too much. And if I did? she asked quietly. Then I would understand why you have seemed so unhappy lately. The response was not what she had expected. She had braced herself for anger, accusations, demands for explanations. Instead, Charles sounded almost sympathetic. You are not angry? How can I be angry? I have suspected for some time that your heart was not entirely mine. I had hoped I was wrong, but recent events had confirmed my fears. Charles, let me finish. I know you are a woman of honor, Evelyn. I know you have never acted on these feelings, never betrayed our marriage vows, but I also know that loving someone you cannot have is a special kind of torment. Tears sprang to her eyes. I have tried to put such thoughts aside. I have tried to be the wife you deserve, and you have been. You have been everything a man could ask for in a wife. Faithful, devoted, caring. You saved my life at great cost to yourself. I could not ask for more. Then why are we having this conversation? Because I love you enough to want you to be happy. Truly happy. And I do not think you can be happy as long as you are torn between duty and desire. The words were like arrows to her heart. What are you saying? I am saying that perhaps we should consider other arrangements. Other arrangements? A separation, a quiet dissolution of our marriage. Nothing scandalous, nothing that would harm either of our reputations, but an end to bonds that have become burdensome. Evelyn stared at him in shock. You want to dissolve our marriage? I want you to be happy. If that means setting you free to pursue your heart's desire, then yes. But I cannot. It would be wrong. It would be sinful. Would it, to end a marriage that brings neither party joy? To allow two people to find love where their hearts lead them? You speak as if you want this separation as much as I do. Charles was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. Perhaps I do. What do you mean? I mean that I, too, have been living a lie, Evelyn. I, too, have been pretending to be content when I am not. I do not understand. There is someone else. Someone I have cared for long before I married you. Someone I gave up because duty demanded it. The revelation hit her like a thunderbolt. Who? Miss Sarah Hartwell, James's cousin. Do you remember her? Evelyn remembered. Sarah Hartwell was a beautiful, vivacious woman 2 years younger than Evelyn. She had always been kind and charming, with golden hair and laughing blue eyes. She had also been penniless, the daughter of a younger son with no prospects. You loved her. I still love her. I have always loved her. But she had no dowry, no family connections. My father forbade the match and arranged my marriage to you instead. And you agreed. What choice did I have? I was the heir. I had duties, obligations. I could not marry for love alone. But you could have told me. You could have been honest about your feelings. Could I? What purpose would it have served?
You were a good match, Evelyn. Your family was respectable, your dowry adequate. I thought I could learn to love you properly in time.
And did you? I learned to care for you deeply, to respect and admire you. But love, true love, that remained with Sarah. They walked in silence for several minutes, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Evelyn spoke. What happened to her, to Miss Hartwell? She never married. She lives quietly in the country, caring for her aging parents. She has refused several offers, though none were particularly advantageous. Because she still loves you? I believe so. We have corresponded occasionally over the years. Nothing improper, you understand. Just friendly letters. But I have always sensed that her feelings remain unchanged. And yours? Unchanged as well. Evelyn felt a strange mixture of emotions. Relief that she was not the only one harboring secret feelings. guilt that she had been so blind to her husband's pain, sadness that they had both spent years pretending to be happy when they were not. "So what do you propose?" she asked. "I propose that we end this charade, that we seek an annulment or separation that will allow us both to pursue our true desires." "And scandal? What of our reputations?" "There need be no scandal if we handle it properly. We could claim incompatibility, irreconcilable differences. Many couples separate quietly these days. And then you would be free to accept His Grace's suit, if he chose to offer it, and I would be free to court Sarah properly." The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. To be free to love Adrian openly, to accept his affections without guilt or shame, it was everything she had dreamed of and everything she had thought impossible. "Do you think he would offer for me, I mean?" "I think," Charles said with a slight smile, "that His Grace would move heaven and earth to make you his wife, if he thought you were free to accept him." "But the scandal?" "What scandal?" "A duke marrying a recently separated woman. Society might whisper for a few weeks, but His Grace's position is too powerful for anyone to cut you directly, especially after his recent championship of your character. You have thought this through carefully." "I have thought of little else since my recovery began. Seeing you so unhappy, so torn between duty and desire, has been almost as painful as the illness itself." They had reached the house, but neither moved toward the door. Instead, they stood in the garden, contemplating a future neither had dared imagine. "There is one thing," Evelyn said finally. "What?" "How do we know that Adrian, that His Grace, returns my feelings? He has never spoken of love, never indicated any interest beyond friendship." Charles laughed, a rich sound full of amusement. "My dear wife, the man nearly challenged Lord Pemberton to a duel last week for making a disparaging comment about your reputation. He has spent a fortune having flowers delivered to ladies of influence, all to spread favorable stories about your character. He looks at you as if you hung the moon and stars. Trust me, his feelings are not in question, but he has never said anything. Because you are married to another man. Because he is an honorable gentleman who would never compromise a married woman. But if you were free," Charles shook his head, "if you were free, I believe he would propose within the week." The thought made her heart race with possibility. To be Adrian's wife, to share his name and his bed and his life, it was a dream she had hardly dared acknowledge, even to herself. "And you truly would not object? You would not think ill of me for choosing another man over you?" "Evelyn, we have both been living a polite lie for years. We care for each other, respect each other, but we are not in love, not the way married couples should be. Setting each other free would be an act of kindness, not betrayal. How would we?
I will speak to my solicitor tomorrow. Quietly, discreetly, we can claim that the strain of my illness has revealed irreconcilable differences in our temperaments. It is not uncommon for couples to discover incompatibility after such trials.
And in the meantime, we continue as we are. Nothing changes until the legal arrangements are complete. But perhaps we can both begin to hope for a different future." That evening, Evelyn sat in her sitting room, staring into the fire and trying to absorb everything that had happened. In the space of a single conversation, her entire life had been turned upside down. She was going to be separated from her husband. She was going to be free to love Adrian openly. It should have filled her with joy, but instead she felt strangely numb. For so long she had accepted that her feelings for Adrian were impossible, forbidden. The idea that they might soon be not only possible but encouraged was almost too much to comprehend. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. To her surprise, Charles entered, still dressed in his evening clothes. "I hope I am not disturbing you." "Not at all. Sit, please." He took the chair across from her, his expression serious. "I have been thinking about our conversation this afternoon, as have I. I want to make sure you understand that I am not pressuring you into this separation. If you would prefer to remain married, to try to make our union work despite our divided affections, I will respect that choice. And be miserable for the rest of your life? I have been managing well enough so far." "Managing is not the same as living, Charles. You said so yourself." "No, it is not." He was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. "I wrote to Sarah today." "You did?" "Yes, I told her about my illness, about my recovery. I asked if I might call on her when I am strong enough to travel." "What did you say about us?" "Nothing yet. I thought it best to wait until we have made a firm decision about our future." Evelyn nodded. "That was wise, was it? Sometimes I think wisdom is overrated. Sometimes I think we should follow our hearts and let wisdom be damned." "Is that what you want to do?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Yes, I want to follow my heart. I want to court Sarah properly, the way I should have done years ago. I want to marry her and build a life based on love, not duty." "Then we should proceed with the separation." "You are certain?" Evelyn thought of Adrian, of the way he had looked at her that night in this very room. She thought of his kiss, of the passion and longing in his eyes. She thought of the years of secret admiration, of wondering what might have been. "Yes," she said, "I am certain." Charles smiled, the first genuinely happy expression she had seen on his face in years. "Then we are both about to become very fortunate people." "I hope so." "I know so." He rose from his chair and moved to the door. "Good night, Evelyn. Sleep well." "Good night, Charles." After he left, she continued to sit by the fire, her mind racing with possibilities. In a few weeks, perhaps a few months, she would be free to love Adrian without guilt or shame, free to accept his suit if he chose to offer it, free to build a life based on passion instead of duty. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if Adrian's feelings had changed? What if he no longer wanted her once she was available? What if the forbidden nature of their attraction had been part of its appeal? She pushed such doubts aside. She had to believe that what she had seen in his eyes was real, lasting. She had to trust that his feelings ran as deep as her own. Tomorrow, Charles would begin the legal process of separation. Soon she would be free to discover whether the love she and Adrian shared was strong enough to build a future on. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Evelyn was in the morning room, trying to concentrate on her embroidery, when the butler announced that the Duke of Ravenshollow had called. Her heart leaped into her throat. Adrian had not called alone since that night 3 weeks ago. Why was he here now? "Show him in, please," she said, setting aside her needlework with trembling hands. Adrian entered the room like a force of nature, his dark eyes intense and focused. He was dressed for riding, his boots polished to a high shine, his hair slightly tousled from the wind. He looked magnificent and dangerous, and completely irresistible. "Your Grace," she said, rising from her chair. "This is an unexpected pleasure." "Is it?" His voice was rough with some unnamed emotion. "Lady Whitmore, I must speak with you, privately." "Of course. Please, sit down." "Shall I ring for tea?" "No." He began pacing the small room like a caged animal. "What I have to say will not take long." "Very well." She settled back into her chair, trying to appear calm despite the way her pulse was racing. "I have heard rumors," he said abruptly. "Rumors?" "About you and your husband. About a possible, Separation. Evelyn's breath caught. How had word gotten out so quickly? Charles had only spoken to his solicitor yesterday afternoon. Where did you hear such a thing? Does it matter? Is it true? She could not lie to him, not when he was looking at her with such intensity. Yes, it is true. Adrian stopped pacing and turned to face her directly. Why? Because we have both come to realize that our marriage was a mistake, that we are not compatible. Compatible. He said the word as if it tasted bitter. What does that mean exactly? It means that we care for each other deeply, but we are not in love. Not the way married couples should be. And this realization came suddenly. After years of marriage? Not suddenly, no. But recent events have made it impossible to ignore. What recent events? She could not tell him about Charles's confession regarding Sarah Hartwell. That was her husband's secret to share or keep. But she could tell him part of the truth. My illness, Charles's illness, brought many things into focus. It made us both realize that life is too short to spend it living a lie. A lie? Pretending to be happy when we are not. Pretending to be content with a marriage that satisfies neither of us. Adrian's eyes burned into hers. And what would satisfy you, Evelyn? The way he said her name made her shiver. It was the first time he had used it since that night they kissed, and it carried all the weight of his suppressed feelings. That is not for me to say. Is it not? You are about to become a free woman. Surely you have given some thought to what you want from your newfound freedom. She could not answer that question without revealing her feelings for him. Not when he was standing so close, looking at her with such intensity. Adrian, she began, but he held up a hand. No. Let me speak first. I have something to tell you, something I should have said weeks ago. What? I am leaving England. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? I am leaving for the continent next week. Business matters that require my personal attention. For how long? Indefinitely, perhaps permanently. But why? Your estates, your responsibilities here, can be managed by others. I find I no longer have any compelling reason to remain in England. The message was clear. He was leaving because of her, because being near her was too painful to bear, because he thought she would remain married forever, trapped in a loveless union. Adrian, if you knew about the separation, I know about it now, but I also know it changes nothing. How can you say that? It changes everything, does it? He moved closer, his dark eyes searching her face. Tell me, Evelyn, why are you seeking this separation? What do you hope to gain from it? The direct question demanded an honest answer. She could not dissemble or deflect any longer. Freedom, she said quietly. Freedom to love where my heart leads me. Where does your heart lead you? You know where. Do I? I know where I hope it leads. I know where I have dreamed it leads. But I need to hear you say it. She rose from her chair and moved to stand before him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. My heart leads me to you, Adrian. It always has. The confession hung in the air between them, raw and honest and irrevocable. Adrian's hands clenched into fists at his sides, and she could see him fighting some internal battle. Evelyn, he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. Do you know what you are saying? Yes. Do you know what it would mean? The scandal, the gossip, the whispers that would follow us both. I do not care about gossip. Your reputation has already been dragged through the mud and restored again. I have learned that reputation is less important than happiness. And you think you could be happy with me? I think I could be complete with you. I think I could be the woman I was meant to be instead of the woman duty forced me to become. Something broke in his eyes then. With a sound that was half growl, half prayer, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her with desperate intensity. This kiss was different from their first, hungrier, more demanding, full of years of suppressed longing and the promise of a future together. She melted against him, her hands fisting in his shirt, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was what she had dreamed of, what she had yearned for. This was what love felt like when it was allowed to burn freely, instead of being banked and hidden. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Adrian rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed tight. "I have wanted to do that for so long," he whispered. "As have I. Are you certain about this separation? About ending your marriage?" "Yes. Charles and I have discussed it thoroughly. We both want to be free to find real love. Charles knows about us. He suspects. He has suspected for some time. He is not angry, Adrian. He understands." "How can he understand? If you were my wife and another man looked at you the way I look at you, I would call him out. Because Charles has his own reasons for wanting freedom. There is someone else he has loved for years. Someone he gave up to marry me." Adrian pulled back to look at her directly. "Is that true?" "Yes. We have both been living a lie, pretending to be content when we were not. The separation will free us both to pursue our heart's desires. And your heart's desire is me." "Yes, if you want me." "If I want you," he laughed. A rich sound full of wonder and disbelief. "Evelyn, I have wanted you since I was 20 years old. I have dreamed of you, yearned for you, loved you from afar for years. Wanting you is not the question. Then what is? Whether I can make you happy. Whether I can be the husband you deserve. Whether I can give you the life you want. All I want is you. Your love, your loyalty, your presence beside me. Everything else is just details. Marriage to me will not be easy. I am not the most sociable of men. I can be difficult, demanding, possessive. I have a temper when roused, and I am not the most conventional of women. I mix medicines in the middle of the night and ignore society's expectations when it suits me. I think we are well matched." He smiled then, the first genuine smile she had seen from him in weeks. "Yes, I think we are. So you will not leave for the continent?" "Not unless you want to come with me. I hear Venice is beautiful in the spring." "Is that a proposal, Your Grace?" "That depends." "Would you accept it if it were?" "In a heartbeat." He kissed her again, softer this time but no less passionate. When they parted, his eyes were bright with joy and promise. "Then yes, Lady Evelyn Whitmore, I am proposing to you. Will you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, 1,000 times yes. Even though we will have to wait until your separation is finalized. I have waited years to be with you. I can wait a few months more. It will not be easy. There will be gossip, speculation, people who disapprove of our unconventional courtship. Let them disapprove. I care only for your opinion and my own conscience. And what does your conscience tell you? That love is worth fighting for, that happiness is worth pursuing, that we have both sacrificed enough for duty and propriety. Then we are agreed. Once you are free, we will marry immediately." "How immediately?" "Special license. Private ceremony. Just us and the vicar and whatever witnesses the law requires." "That sounds perfect, does it? Most women dream of large weddings with flowers and music and hundreds of guests. I am not most women. I dream of being your wife, and everything else is just pageantry." He kissed her forehead gently, reverently. "I love you, Evelyn, more than life itself. And I love you. I have loved you since I was 18 years old, and you helped me up from a fall. That long. That long. I was just too young and too afraid to understand what it meant. And now? Now I am neither young nor afraid. Now I know exactly what it means, and I am ready to embrace it fully. They stood together in the morning light, holding each other and planning their future. There would be challenges ahead. The legal process of separation, the gossip that would inevitably follow, the adjustments that came with any marriage, but they would face them together, bound by a love that had been tested by time and separation and had only grown stronger. "There is one thing we need to discuss," Adrian said eventually. "What?" "Your husband. How do we handle this transition? I do not want to cause him unnecessary pain or embarrassment. Charles is a good man. He wants us both to be happy. I think if we are discreet and respectful, he will support our union. I should speak to him. Formally, properly. Ask for his blessing, even though it is unconventional. He would appreciate that. Despite everything, he is still my husband until the separation is finalized. He deserves that courtesy. Then I will call on him this afternoon. Man to man, gentleman to gentleman. What will you say? The truth. That I love his wife and want to marry her when she is free. That I will treat her with honor and devotion. That I will make her happy in ways their current marriage cannot. And if he objects, then I will try to change his mind. But I do not think he will object. From what you have told me, he wants your happiness as much as I do. He does. He truly does." They talked for another hour, making plans and sharing dreams. When Adrian finally left, Evelyn felt lighter than she had in years. The future stretched before her, bright with possibility. Soon she would be free to love openly, to build a life based on passion instead of duty. The medicine she had served her husband each night had indeed been a kind of poison, poison to the lie they had been living, poison to the pretense that duty was enough, poison to the marriage that had satisfied neither of them. But from that poison had come healing, healing for Charles, yes, but also healing for herself. The courage to save her husband's life had taught her the courage to save her own. That afternoon, as promised, Adrian called on Charles. Evelyn waited in her sitting room, too nervous to concentrate on anything. The conversation between the two men would determine the course of her future. When Charles finally came to find her, his expression was thoughtful but not angry. "How did it go?" she asked anxiously. "Better than I expected. His Grace is a man of honor, Evelyn. He spoke frankly about his feelings for you and his intentions regarding your future together. And I gave him my blessing, with condition." "What condition?" "That he wait until our separation is finalized before making any public announcement, that he treat you with the respect and devotion you deserve, and that he make you happier than I ever could." "Charles?" Tears sprang to her eyes. "Thank you." "Do not thank me. Thank yourself. You have earned the right to choose your own path. As have you heard from Miss Hartwell?" His face brightened. "Yes, she has agreed to see me when I am well enough to travel. I leave for the country next week." "So soon? Why wait? We have both wasted enough years already." "Yes, we have." They smiled at each other. Two people who had found the courage to choose love over duty, happiness over convention. It was not the ending either of them had expected when they married, but it was the ending they both deserved. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Evelyn stood before the altar of a small country church and became the Duchess of Ravenshollow. She wore a simple gown of ivory silk and carried a bouquet of white roses. Adrian waited for her at the altar, magnificent in his dark coat and white cravat, his eyes bright with love and joy. The ceremony was small and private, attended only by a few close friends and family members. James had returned from India just in time to give his sister away. Charles was there too, having married Sarah Hartwell in a similarly intimate ceremony the month before. There was no awkwardness between the former spouses, only warmth and mutual respect. As they exchanged vows, Evelyn thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. The midnight medicine that had looked like poison but had actually been healing. The courage to save a life that had led to the courage to claim her own happiness. The love that had waited years to be acknowledged and would now last a lifetime. "With this ring," Adrian said, slipping a simple gold band onto her finger, "I thee wed." "With this ring," she replied, her voice steady and sure, "I thee wed." The vicar pronounced them husband and wife, and Adrian kissed her with tender reverence. As they turned to face their small gathering of loved ones, Evelyn felt a profound sense of completeness. She was exactly where she belonged, with exactly the man she was meant to love. The reception was held at Adrian's nearby estate, a lovely old manor house surrounded by rolling hills and ancient oaks. As they danced their first dance, as husband and wife, Adrian whispered in her ear, "Are you happy, Your Grace?" The title made her smile. "Completely happy." "You? I have never been happier in my life. Thank you for choosing me, Evelyn. Thank you for waiting for me. I would have waited forever." Fortunately, forever was not necessary. They danced until the sun set, surrounded by the laughter and good wishes of their friends. When the last guest had departed, they walked hand in hand through the gardens, talking quietly about their plans for the future. "Where shall we go for our wedding trip?" Adrian asked. "Anywhere you like. As long as we are together, I do not care." "Venice, then." "I promised you Venice." "Venice sounds perfect." They paused beside a fountain very similar to the one in the garden, where she had made the decision to end her first marriage. The water sparkled in the moonlight, creating patterns of light and shadow on the stones. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked. "Leaving Charles, ending your first marriage?" "Never. Do you regret waiting so long to declare yourself?" "Only that we lost so many years. But perhaps we needed those years to become the people we are now. Perhaps we needed to understand the difference between duty and desire, between contentment and joy. Perhaps we did. I love you, Duchess. And I love you, Duke." He kissed her then, long and deep and full of promise. Above them, the stars wheeled in their courses, indifferent to human affairs, but somehow approving of this particular human happiness. Later, as they lay in the great bed of the master chamber, wrapped in each other's arms, Evelyn reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. She had begun as a woman serving what appeared to be poison to her husband every night. She had endured suspicion, fear, and accusations of witchcraft. She had nearly lost herself in duty and obligation. But in the end, the medicine that had looked like poison had been the salvation of them all. It had healed Charles's body and revealed the truth about their marriage. It had given her the courage to claim her own happiness and freed them both to find real love. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian murmured against her hair. "About medicine that looked like poison. About how sometimes what appears to be harmful is actually healing. And sometimes what appears to be duty is actually cowardice. And sometimes what appears to be impossible is actually inevitable."
"Yes, we were inevitable, Evelyn."
"From that first day when I helped you up from your fall, this moment was inevitable." "Was it?" "I believe so. Some loves are too strong to be denied forever. Some connections too powerful to be severed by convention or duty." "I am glad you believe that." "Why?" "Because it means this happiness will last. If we were truly inevitable, then nothing can separate us now. Nothing ever will," he promised, pulling her closer. "We have found our way to each other at last, and I will never let you go." She settled against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Outside, the night was peaceful and still. Inside, she was exactly where she belonged, in the arms of the man she loved, free at last to give her heart without reservation. The medicine she had served her husband every night had indeed been poison, poison to the life she had been living, poison to the lies they had all been telling themselves. But from that poison had come the greatest healing of all, the healing of the heart, the courage to choose love, and the wisdom to know that happiness was worth any price. She had served poison to her husband every night until the Duke discovered it was medicine. But the real medicine had been love itself, patient, enduring, transformative love that had the power to heal not just bodies but souls. And now finally she was free to take that medicine herself, to drink deeply of the love that would sustain her for the rest of her days. In the quiet darkness of their bridal chamber, with her husband's arms around her and their future stretching bright before them, Evelyn smiled and let herself drift into dreams of Venice and sunshine and a lifetime of nights that would never require secrets or pretense or the bitter taste of regret. She had been saved by medicine that looked like poison. But she had been healed by love that looked like impossibility and turned out to be the most natural thing in the world.